We are so blessed today to have Anat Hoffman with us. We're going to talk about the incredible women and work of Women of the Wall. We did speak before the Zoom began that we would like to acknowledge the war in Ukraine. We want to acknowledge all those who are staying to fight. We want to acknowledge all those who have left and are trying to find safety in Europe. We sent out from Temple Israel an email last night with different ways you can donate to help support not only our congregations there, but also the refugees, and also ways to learn. And please join us on Friday night on Shabbat for Refugee Shabbat. Refugee Shabbat is being celebrated throughout the United States and probably the world. So please join us tomorrow night at 7 p.m. So let me first introduce Anat Hoffman before she begins her presentation. Anat Hoffman is the chair of the board and the executive director of the Israeli Religious Action Center, the legal advocacy arm of the Reform movement in Israel. Previously, she held a seat on the Jerusalem City Council, where for 14 years she stood in opposition to the policies of the city's right-wing and ultra-Orthodox administration. She has dedicated her adult life to the Jewish principle of tikkun olam, which means repairing the world. She has served as executive director of the Israeli Religious, excuse me, I already said that. Her position in Iraq places her at the forefront of the efforts to advance religious pluralism in the state of Israel. As executive director of Iraq, Anat has fought and won recognition of the reform and conservative conversions and has led the struggle against gender segregation in the public domain, including public buses, airplanes, and a national radio station. And of course, today, as chair of the board of Women in the Wall, we're going to focus on the work there that she is doing to fight for equality, equal access at the Western Wall. So thank you, Anat, for being with us today. I give it to you.
Everybody, Shalom Detroit. I just heard that people who live in Michigan are called
Michiganders.
It has its comic aspects in Hebrew. It sounds like Michigoim, and it's okay. So Shalom, Detroit. Thank you for being interested in the struggle for equality at the Western Wall. We started our struggle 33 years ago. We were then single women. We're now grandmothers, and we're still in the struggle, but we have made quite a bit of headway. And we did it with the help of people such as Rabbi Loss, who's here, and people who have been following us for decades, supporting us for decades. The whole idea of women praying out loud, wearing a prayer shawl, I'm wearing now the prayer shawl of Women of the Wall, putting on phylacteries and reading from the Torah, it wasn't born in my head. Trust me, it was bred out of my head when I was a babe right here in Israel. It is an idea that came from abroad. It came from a group of North American women who came to a conference on the empowerment of the Jewish woman, and they came up with the idea of bringing a Torah to the wall and praying for the safety of Israel. Hatfilah l'shlom ha'medina. You would think that the minute they mentioned this, I was excited and decided to join them. The answer is no, I didn't see the light at all. I thought that they were romantic and naive to think that the ultra-Orthodox would let them read from the Torah. And I immediately announced that I'm not joining them. However, they ran into me in the lobby. They said that the Hyatt Hotel is not willing to rent them a folding table. In my discussion with Rivka Hout, an Orthodox woman from Flatbush that explained to me what they want to do the next day, I understood all the English words except one. She kept saying that they need a table for the Torah. I wasn't aware what a Torah was, but in Flatbush, Torah is the Torah scroll. So that's it. The chair of the Women of the Wall joined the Women of the Wall as the schlepper of the folding table. I didn't see that far. I didn't realize that this is the final frontier. equality in religion. And I think it's important for you to realize that a diaspora is a botanical term. It's a plant that moves in the air, moves in the wind, and plants itself in other places. And you, from the diaspora, invented Women of the Wall, and you should take pride in it. Anyway, one of our 4 strategic goals, praying out loud, putting on phylacteries, wearing a talit, and reading from the Torah, we won 3 out of 4. We're winners. It is now legal for a woman to pray out loud. It is legal to put on phylacteries, and it is legal to wear a talit. Trust me, once it wasn't. I actually have a criminal record because I was detained and arrested more than once for breaking the 13th regulation of the law of holy places, performing a religious rite, which is contrary to local custom and offends the feelings of others. So saying Shema Yisrael out loud at the wall years ago was considered a felony. Putting on a talis, a criminal act. Putting on phylacteries. One of the times I was detained was for inciting young girls to have a bat mitzvah. I can't think of a nicer thing to be arrested for. Inciting young girls for a bat mitzvah. Anyway, now we have only one thing left, reading the Torah. And tomorrow, Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet, we will be coming, hundreds of Women of the Wall, hoping to read from the Torah. There are over 100 Torah scrolls at the wall. They're all for public use, but they're not for women. Women, according to the Rabbi of the Wall, not allowed to read from the Torah, not allowed to touch the Torah, and not allowed even to gaze at the Torah when it is lifted in the men's section. We will be bringing a Torah scroll. It's a 300-year-old Torah scroll from Sacramento, California that belongs to a congregation called Bnei Israel. And little Rudy, that came from Germany, survived the Holocaust, is a 3.2 kilo tiny scroll. I am not at liberty to disclose to you how we will sneak it in, and we may fail. We have failed more times than we succeeded. But let me just stop for a moment and tell you, think about it. Here we are, adult Jews in Israel today, figuring out how to sneak a Torah scroll to the wall so we could read from it respectfully on Rosh Chodesh Adar. Is this the Jewish state that we were dreaming about? A place that has full and complete equality to all the inhabitants without difference of gender and creed and race? Something went wrong somewhere along the way. And the way the ultra-Orthodox, who have a monopoly over everything Jewish in Israel, the way they throw their weight around is with violence. I'd like you to see a short video that shows what it's like to bring the Torah to the wall.
I'm just switching screens right now. Just give me 1 second. Okay, it should be able to share in just one minute. Okay, please let me know if you can see the movie. Can you let me know if you can see it? Yes, Nechama? Yeah, okay. Okay, I checked this just about the minute before pretty much the minute before I did this. This morning, let's see. All right, here we go. Come on. I just checked you right before we started. Okay, so give me 1 second. All right, Anat, while I'm moving and shifting things around, so hopefully it'll play, can you explain to us why Rosh Chodesh is so important to Women of the Wall and why that's
Gladly.
your day? And I'm gonna work,
Gladly.
I'm gonna work.
So there are few reminders in our daily life that we are women. One is our salary. I don't know if you know that in Israel, women on the average make less than men. And in all the municipalities, for example, they make 46% less. And the Jewish agency, they make 30% less. And banks and insurance companies, 80% less. So that's a monthly reminder, we're women. There's another monthly reminder, which is physical. And there is the Rosh Chodesh, the new month, which is traditionally a women's holiday. Women celebrated Rosh Chodesh, and we linked with this tradition. And for the last 33 years, if it snows and if there is an uprising, intifada, or it's very hot, we are still at the wall. We come every time. And in fact, a few years ago, it snowed very hard. We went to the wall and we built a snow woman. I want to tell you, friends from Detroit, that we don't have the equipment to walk to the wall in the snow. We thought that putting our feet in sandwich bags would actually take care of the feet problem. It doesn't. We were frozen by the time we arrived, and we built a snow woman and we put a tallis on our snow woman. And I kid you not, the Jewish policeman came and told us that snow women cannot wear a talit.
That's really unbelievable.
Yeah, we have a video. He explains that the talit is just for men and we should take it off our snow woman.
Wow.
Yeah, something was derailed in how Israel looks at women in religion. And it's tragic because Israel should be the place where, oh, here we go.
You got it? All right.
Maybe.
Yes?
Spit on your face. Oh, your face. Shut up and smile. I could do that. 'Cause no one knows me, no one ever will. If I don't say something, take that dry blue pill. They may see a monster, they may run away, but I have to do this. I can't keep quiet. No, no, oh, I can't keep quiet. No, no, no one woman oh, I can't keep quiet. There'll be someone who understands. Must be someone who understands. There'll be someone who understands. I can't keep quiet. Oh, I can't keep quiet. I can't keep quiet. No, I won't keep quiet.
Wow.
Rabbi, kol hakavod, you did it.
I
You
did
got
it.
you to work.
I did it. After 2 years, you would think that it would be easy, but tech always gets me. I have so many questions for you. I'm so glad we were able to see with our own 2 eyes what you face when you go on Rosh Chodesh. It said that there was a special checkpoint set up for Women of the Wall. Why?
Yeah. Why? Because they're worried that we will sneak in a Torah scroll. So they actually do physical checkups on Women of the Wall to look for a Torah scroll. Since not all the policemen are educated, we had the comic moment a few years ago when Peggy Sido brought a Talmud with her. And the following conversation ensued. The guard calls headquarters and says, there's a woman here, the big book. How big? Very big. Is it a Torah scroll? I don't know. It looks like it's holy. I don't know. She says it's not a Torah. And they, in the end, checking, they allowed her the Talmud. But the fact that it is illegal for a woman to bring a Torah scroll, to read from the Torah scroll is outrageous. And tomorrow it's going to be the first day of Rosh Chodesh Adar Bet, and we will come in forces. And who's coming with us? Oh. President of the Reform Movement of North America, Rabbi Rick Jacobs. The president of the Conservative Movement of North America, Rabbi Jacob Blumenthal. The president of Hadassah. The heads of the Jewish Agency. The same group that you saw marching in the video, they're all coming. And to add, we will also try to sneak a Torah scroll ourselves. Hearing about this event, the ultra-Orthodox decided to recruit 100 buses, 50 girls on every bus, young women from seminars, ultra-Orthodox seminars, and their attempt will be to fill the women's section to the brim with tens of thousands of girls that will not allow us to have room to even pray. Oh. To show, and I want to say something and link with what you said so moving, your moving words about Ukraine. If you believe in prayer and you can bring 20,000 people to the wall tomorrow, wouldn't it be a better reason to come and pray for peace in the world? Wouldn't that be a worthwhile endeavor rather than to bring all these thousands of girls to disrupt the prayer of a minority group that's been there for 33 years, praying as is our custom? I'm just asking this of the chief rabbis of Israel, of the leaders of the ultra-Orthodox who got these buses together. The girls will not be paying going up on the bus. Someone is putting in tens of thousands of shekalim to pay for this disruption.
So one of my questions is kind of like a two-part question. First, it hurts me to see people trying to rip the Torah out of your arms and possibly tear it apart, right? Possibly break it, tear it apart, which I see, isn't that a desecration, right, of the Torah scroll that we're supposed to be protecting? And at the same time, isn't that desecration of prayer, right? How do they justify that? How does that make sense?
When they tear our prayer books, and tragically they've done that quite a few times. In fact, on the 11th of June last year, 39 of our prayer books were destroyed and shredded to pieces. You have a little video of that, but I'm not going to push you on the technology. But when they were doing it, they were shouting, Sifrei Minim, Sifrei Minim. They were tearing a prayer book, but they were calling it,
like heretics, right?
Heretics, thank you, heretics. Books of heretics. Now, our Siddur is the regular Siddur. And the police saw 39 prayer books shredded to pieces at the wall. And when I turned to them later and said, didn't you realize it's a hate crime? Did you imagine, let's say Arabs would have taken these 39 prayer books and tore them to shreds. Wouldn't you recognize this as a hate crime? And the policemen, the few that I talked to, said, no, I didn't see a hate crime. I saw an expression of religion.
Would you like me to try to play the video? I think I can this time. Would you
Please.
Like me to play it? Okay.
Yes, very much. Yeah.
All right. Let's give it
in honor of our 39 prayer books.
Yes. Okay.
Hi, I'm Tammy Gottlieb, Vice Chair of Women of the Wall. I've been coming to the Western Wall to pray with women of the wall for almost 13 years. I cry there very few times. Most of the time, I don't let the evil get to me. But on Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, it was just too difficult. A bunch of incited boys, without an ounce of respect, grabbed a suitcase full of our prayer books and tore them to shreds. They stepped on the pages and on my hands. They tore the pages and threw them in my face because of their religious radicalism. I saved what I could. With a broken suitcase in my arms, I went into the women's section. Once there, surrounded by my friends, I cried. The powerful prayer service we had after this horrible event proved that what we were doing is so important. All the horrible feelings disappeared when I caught a glimpse of one of the young girls that came to pray with us. Especially now, I ask you to join Women of the Wall, stand by our side, and be part of our struggle. Support us.
It like brings me to tears. I don't know how you justify that. There is
Rabbi Tami Gottlieb, my deputy, my second at Women of the Wall, is one of the few combat soldiers of Israel. She was an officer in Karakal, which is a combat unit of men and women who are in the field. This is a lady who knows her tough as nails, and she broke down picking up those sidurim. I just can't believe something like this happened and no one is responsible. We're now talking to the Minister of Internal Security. Yesterday we had a talk all about June 11th, asking him if there are cameras there. There are more cameras at the wall than anywhere else in Israel. It really is one of the most protected places in the Middle East. And you don't know who tore those sidurim? Don't you realize that the person who tears a siddur is and goes unpunished, faces no consequences, is very likely to do something worse next time? So it takes great courage to go tomorrow morning and face all these thousands of people who have so little knowledge of what we're about, just incitement and a feeling that they don't know anything about Reform Judaism, conservative Judaism, and certainly not about Women of the Wall. A third of us are Orthodox. They don't know that. They're just full of incitement, demanding that we stop. And when you think that the reason is that we injure their feelings, let me tell you what happened in court. In a brilliant legal move, I was able to actually see that it's not about injury to one's feelings. I offered the Minister of Religious Affairs that we will come 11 hours a year. Only 11 hours a year. We won't come on Rosh Hashanah, and the minister himself will choose what hour should we come. 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. We will come when nobody is there. And the minister was asked by the Supreme Court, well, how about it? Looks like they're bending over backwards. Why don't you agree? And he said, the wall listens. I'm the Minister of Religious Affairs, and I know what the wall wants to hear, and I know what the wall wants to see, and the wall doesn't want to see them. So it's not really the fact that we disrupt other people's prayer. It's a territorial war over who is in charge of religion in Israel, and what kind of worship do we allow at the wall. And right now, just orthodoxy. And the Women of the Wall, this courageous tiny group, is challenging all that and demanding freedom at the wall. We're actually liberating the wall.
Well, that's just it. He's giving you an argument that's not really an argument, right? I mean, how do you fight with an irrational argument? How do you come back with that? How do you feel? Does it make a difference to you when the opposition or like in one of the videos, there's what appears to be an Orthodox woman blowing a whistle in your faces? Like, to me, I feel a sense of injury almost more from the women than the men. And perhaps I shouldn't, but how does that feel when you're there and people are blowing whistles in your faces and a woman got pushed to the ground?
Yeah, the whistles are to prevent the men from hearing our voices. She's actually serving the men by enabling them to pray. Hearing whistles is better than hearing our Chazanit lead prayer. But let me maybe explain how these women feel. I actually have a woman, I wouldn't say a friend, an acquaintance that has 9 children. And she said that she rarely gets an opportunity to be with only one child. So on that particular Rosh Chodesh was the first time her daughter menstruated, a secret. Dad doesn't know, the brothers don't know, a special moment between mother and daughter. And she took her daughter to the wall. And as they were praying, we started praying. And her daughter turned to her and said, looking at us with talitot and reading from the Torah, and she said, "Mom, why not us?" And she said, "I didn't bring my daughter to the wall to hear the question, why not? Why not is a subversive question. We don't ask it in our circle. I wanted to have a special moment, and you came with your circus," I'm quoting her, "and you got my daughter to ask why not." And she's right. I will encourage every Jew to ask why not as often as possible every day. I think it's a wonderful question to ask. And if you don't want your daughter to ask why not, keep her in Beis Yaakov and don't take her out of the house. Because if she sees reality, she may ask why not. You can't protect your daughter from asking that. And I encourage your daughter to ask why not. When I asked this mother, "Do you know why not?" She said, "I don't know why the hell not." I don't think it's illegal. It's against halakha what you're doing, but I don't want to get into it. I don't know why not. I don't want to think about it. I said, there is no reason why. And you can join us and you can bring her and you can both read Torah. "Oh, no, it's not for me."
Wow.
She fell in love with her shackles. She fell in love with the role that she has, and it's a limited role that ensures happiness. In her mind, she says she's happier than any one of us. And you know what? She may be. But happiness, I think, is not, I know that to Americans, happiness is very important. The pursuit of happiness is in the core of your Constitution. But I believe in the pursuit of meaning. And I think you, Rabbi, and Rabbi Loss here, and many of us here are in the pursuit of meaning. And we find joy in meaning. And I think Women of the Wall lend meaning to our Judaism. Once you are with us and you're denied reading Torah, you will never say no to Torah. When a rabbi asks you to open the ark, lift the Torah, learn to read two psukim, you will say yes to Torah forever.
Yes. I will never forget a wonderful woman in our congregation who passed away a couple of years ago. I brought her up to the Torah during a class. She was well into her 80s, late 80s. And she was just struck. She had never been that close to a Torah before. And ever since that moment, I have not for a minute taken for granted that I can go up to the ark and pull out the Torah. And then I almost have like a relationship with the Torah. And I think I did before. To be honest. But making meaning, you are making meaning with every step, every visit, every push. I would like to tell people you can use the chat to ask Anat questions. People are saying thank you for your courage to protect our Judaism, that it breaks our hearts that we're fighting the outside world for our existence and discrimination from our own people. 100% Ruth. But yes, please use the chat, or if you know how to use the reaction button to raise your hand, you can also use the reaction button to raise your hand. Go
I
ahead.
would like to ask you a question though. If, God forbid, tomorrow we have a tragedy and bloodshed at the wall, I think you should think of what you would do. You're one of the most important synagogues in North America. You have numbers, you have power, you have influence. What will you do? My suggestion is that you think big, make a nuisance of yourselves, take the girls, take the women, fill the bus with Torah scrolls and go to Washington and stand outside the embassy or in front of any Israeli institution that you can think of in Detroit. I want the Prime Minister of Israel to hear that in Temple Israel, they're not taking this lightly.
So I love making a nuisance of myself, and Rabbi Loss can probably attest to that. So I would be happy to do that, to fill buses and to let them know that we will not stand for that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I hope you stay unemployed, but if the worst comes to worst tomorrow, I really hope that Reform Judaism, conservative Judaism will find their voices to say to Israel, that's it. Implement the Kotel Agreement immediately. Find a way to recognize that there's more than one way to be Jewish in Israel. Make Israel home for all Jews. Orthodoxy is an important minority in the Jewish world. It's a minority. There are more Reformed Jews in North America than conservative and Orthodox combined. We are powerful. In Israel, we have given the keys to the holiest site and the keys to all the things religious to one zealot minority group. It's not good for Orthodoxy, not good for Judaism, and bad for Israel. And we need to get rid of the monopoly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A question came in. How are you able to change some of the laws to be allowed to wear talit, use tefillin, etc.?
Excellent question. We didn't change any law. What we did is we enjoyed the stupidity of the Jerusalem police. The Jerusalem police, in its infinite wisdom, decided that the best way to deal with our provocation is to ban me from the wall because I'm a troublemaker. So I was detained and then taken to court, and Judge Kaduri, with a big kippah on his head, agreed with the police that for 90 days I should be banned from the wall. Police saw that this is a great idea, and the next month they took 5 of our board members, brought them to the police, brought them to court, and demanded that they be banned as well. However, this time it wasn't Judge Kaduri, it was Sharon Larry Bavli, a feminist with a hyphenated name, and Sharon asked, excuse me, what is the local custom at the wall, and who decides what is local custom? The police said, the rabbi of the wall, he decides local custom. And she asked, show me. And no one could show her. It turned out it's an oversight. The government of Israel has never given the rabbi of the wall the authority to decide local custom. Oh, said the judge. I then I declare that if women of the wall have been there for 33 years out of the 55 that the wall has been in Israel's hand, I now declare them local custom. The police, I told you, very wise, appealed at a higher court. And Moshe Sobel, an Orthodox judge with 5 daughters, ruled the Sobel decision. The Sobel decision was recently declared one of the 100 most important decisions in Israel's legal history. And what he ratified the other Sharon Larry Bavli's ruling, he said, in the absence of authority, I rule that women of the wall are local custom by now. So our resilience actually won, and we are now local custom. So you'll ask about the Torah. We are allowed to read from the Torah. The rabbi was able to pass another regulation that we're not allowed to bring the object from which to read. I'm allowed to read from the Torah, but I'm not allowed to bring a Torah scroll.
Again, not a rational argument.
So we will bring a Torah scroll tomorrow, and we will sneak it in a way that, again, I can't disclose. Hopefully we'll succeed.
There is another question. Is Women of the Wall still looking for Torah covers?
Yes, we are always looking for Torah covers, and we'd like you to bring them yourself when you visit Israel. Please bring them as many as you can. If they're a bit torn, don't worry about it. We will lovingly wash them, clean them, embroider them, fix them. But we are gearing towards victory. We are gearing towards launching our choir. We are not heard loud enough. We're going to make a choir of Women of the Wall. I thought we'll call them the Yentels and ask Barbara Streisand for money. But the voices are against Yentels, so it will be the Wow Choir. Any of you know Barbara Streisand? I'm still looking for inroads to her because I think it will inspire this choir. But when we launch our choir, we're going to march with them, and we're going to need as many Torah mantles as possible. You see, the empty Torah mantle represents the fact that we can't read Torah.
Okay. Can you mention the Western Wall Agreement kind of briefly? Could you explain what that is?
After 55 of us were arrested for, again, performing a religious act contrary to local custom, which offends the feelings of others and punishable by 1 year imprisonment, there was an outcry in the United States. The then Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was not able to speak to any group in America without one Jewess or Jew asking him, what about arresting these women? Why are you doing that? It's breaking our heart. It's offensive to us, all that. And one of Netanyahu's advisors, Yaakov Amidro, wrote a paper called Women of the Wall as a Strategic Threat to Israeli Interests in North America. As a result of that, Netanyahu turned to Natan Sharansky, a famous Israeli who fought to be freed from a prison in Russia, and asked him to lead a negotiation. He was head of the Jewish Agency. For 3 years, we negotiated with the government of Israel. I had a parking spot at the Prime Minister's office. And after 1,000 days of negotiation, we came up with a Kotel agreement. And it's a simple agreement. Every mom knows, you to this room, you to that room. Exactly. There'll be 2 plazas at the wall. One will be ultra-Orthodox, run by the rabbi of the wall. And the partition will be made of iron and will be all the way to the sky. And the other plaza will have no partition and will be egalitarian, open, free, and friendly, and we'll run it. And may the best plaza win. We'll give services, they'll give services, and we'll see who gets more of the 12 million visitors a year. And that's the Kotel Agreement.
So why aren't we living according to the Kotel Agreement?
Because our leadership lacks courage. They're afraid. Prime Minister Netanyahu, Prime Minister Bennett said to the leaders of the Reform Conservative movement, I am worried about huge demonstrations. I'm worried about violence in the streets. I'm afraid that I won't be able to contain the outrage of the ultra-Orthodox if I implement the Kotel Agreement. This, in my book, is cowardice. If you think there is a group in Israel that can break all the rules, be violent in the street, then you need to deal with it, because we are a democracy and law and order should prevail.
Right. It's so interesting to me that he's worried about that, but what's about to happen tomorrow with all of these buses and all of these people coming in, like, isn't it happening anyway? Right? Like, it's happening anyway.
Yeah, but it's against Women of the Wall. It's not against Naftali Bennett.
Right.
If he implements the wall agreement, the demonstrations will be against him. And yes, when you have a monopoly, Jennifer, if you were the chief rabbi of Israel and you had $1 billion at your disposal, $1 billion, and you had all the authority on marriage, divorce, burial, kashrut, transportation on Shabbat, everything, you'd find it hard to give it up if someone said you have too much power. I don't think there's something internally wrong, intrinsically wrong with orthodoxy. There's something intrinsically wrong with monopolies.
Right.
That's the problem. And the ultra-Orthodox in Israel have become more zealot, more spoiled, more violent. And we've got to stop it. In our history, and Rabbi Loss, in fact, I heard once in a sermon of his, we've had examples in our history of what happens when we let the zealots rule. When the founder of Israel, Benjamin Zev Herzl, imagined Israel, he said, don't let the rabbis have political power.
Wow. So that he had that forethought, he had that vision.
He did.
Wow.
Just like your Thomas Jefferson, your brilliant president, said that in politics, it's the opposite than in religion. In politics, he said, united we stand, divided we fall. In religion, he says, divided we stand, united we fall. And that's one of the reasons that when you walk in a Detroit street, Main Street, you see a church and a synagogue and a Mormon tabernacle, and you name it, you see a flourishing of religion in America because you don't have a state religion. And when your roof is leaking, you don't call the mayor of Detroit. Or when the Torah needs mending, you don't call the governor of Michigan. But we do that here.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us, does your work with WOW, I don't know if you guys call it that, WOW, Women of the Wall, overlap with the work that you do at the Israeli Religious Action Center? Or is there any issue that you're working on at Iraq now that is really kind of consuming you when Women of the Wall isn't consuming you?
Women of the Wall is my passion, my volunteer job, and the Israel Religious Action Center is it's the service of Women of the Wall. All legal advice that we get is from the Israel Religious Action Center. We're also housed inside the Hebrew Union College campus, and we are the Women of the Wall enjoy Iraq is a strong enough organization to be able to extend a hand to a small, courageous, resilient organization like Women of the Wall. So we enjoy services from the Israel Religious Action Center.
How can we as Americans help? How, we talked about making our voices heard in DC. How can we help support the women who are so brave and who are going to walk into the Kotel Plaza?
So this is the time for my colleague Nechama Namal to shine. Just so you know, Nechama made Aliyah to Israel from beautiful Arizona. And Nechama is the head of our development, and she's full of ideas on what you can do.
Thank you, Anat. Thank you for asking, Rabbi, because it's a wonderful question, and we always need more people to stand with us and to understand what we're fighting for and how it impacts people throughout the entire world, not just here in Israel. We recently had a petition with a letter that was signed by many people to the Prime Minister Bennett. That's on our Facebook page still. The link is there. So I highly encourage people to look on facebook.com/Women of the Wall and to please participate in that call to action and sign our petition. We also have beautiful Women of the Wall merchandise. We sell 3 different talitot and challah covers and sidurim if people are looking for wonderful gifts for themselves or someone they love. I encourage you to visit womenofthewall.org.il, and that is modeling our 4 mothers talit, which is just exquisite. That's a wool talit that's all handmade. And I also encourage people to reach out to your representatives and let them know how you feel about what's going on in Israel. Everyone has a stake in our political situation here. And like Anat said about the monopoly that we have to endure, even in just our daily lives here. And last of all, on Women of the Wall, our website, we also have a place where you can sign up for our newsletter. We send out about a newsletter every 2 to 3 weeks. And also there's a place to donate to support our activism at the Kotel and in all realms of Israel. We do a lot of educational activities. We give lectures such as this. We speak to groups of pre-army students, gap year students, you name the demographic, we're there to give a lecture and to educate people as much as possible, to express our passion for the work that we do. And thank you for having us tonight.
You forgot one thing. When you come to Israel, look up when is Rosh Chodesh and join us at the wall.
You're right,
That
I
is-
did forget that.
We really love that you
Yes.
come and you join us.
And the Rosh Chodesh dates are also on our website, and I'd be happy to clarify if anybody ever is planning a trip and wants to just double check. You're happy to write to me and I'll check that out for you.
And Barbara Streisand for the choir. If you
But
know her,
we gotta find Barbara
I
Streisand.
need her. Yeah.
No, I last time you spoke at Temple Israel, I said, my God, I just want to be arrested with a knot. And, I say it tongue in cheek, but, the women that I'm looking at who are joining us today, all of the women on this call would be arrested with you, because these are women who are leaders in our congregation, who are showing the next generation of women that these holy objects, these places on the bima, are also ours, and we belong there. And it's so interesting to me. I didn't realize before I became a rabbi that I had never met a woman rabbi. And now it's so important to me that these teen girls and even younger girls understand that we are rabbis and Jewish leaders, and we have Jewish tradition inside of us as much as any man. And what's so interesting is that I never thought to say as much as any woman, because it never occurred to me that a woman wouldn't want another woman to have full participation. So I've learned so much from what you do every single day, truly.
No one likes to feel cognitive dissonance. And if I am an ultra-Orthodox woman who loved Torah, never seen the Torah from inside, never learned to read, my sons had 10 bar mitzvahs, I've never been close to it. And suddenly I see a woman who's holding the Torah, reading from the Torah, wearing a talis, putting on phylacteries. That brings me into crazy cognitive dissonance. How come she can do it and I'm not? Why not me? You understand that it's the ones that are most open that are most scared of us.
Mm-hmm. It's, I guess that's my cognitive dissonance, right? Because again, like, I've been so blessed to have access to these things and have wonderful men as mentors, right?
Yes.
So it's such a different way to have access to Judaism.
I just have to share with you that every month somebody turns to one of the women of the wall, someone that is so unlikely to be a supporter, be it a man with the whole shebang or a woman with the tichel and everything. And she quietly says, don't stop. I admire you. You're an inspiration. And in fact, one of our employees until recently was one of the girls that was brought to demonstrate against us. Right, Nechama? Wendy came to Israel for a 1 year abroad in a yeshiva for girls, was brought to fight the women of the wall, and later became one of us.
It's fantastic. That's amazing. Nechama just put in the chat that tomorrow at 6:40 a.m. in Israel. So we're behind. So that would be about 1:40 in the morning here. They're going to be live streaming Rosh Chodesh on their Facebook page. So that's pretty great that we can be with you. The video will also be posted for viewing later. So if you can't stay up until 1:40 in the morning, definitely check out the Women of the Wall's Facebook page so we can be supportive and we can see what happens. And we all should tune in and see what happens. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? I want to make sure everyone has the opportunity to ask their questions, either in the chat or again, if you know how to raise your hand in the reactions. Oh, it's 11:40 p.m. We're 7 hours behind you, right? We're 7 hours behind you. Okay, we're about to go through daylight savings also. So I know sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7, and I'm a rabbi because math has never been really my thing. Well, I don't see any questions. I have to say thank you to Nechama for helping us organize everything. Thank you, Anat, for sharing your time with us, but for also sharing your courage with the world, sharing your fight with the world, for never backing down. The American Jewish community is behind you. Temple Israel is behind you. Rabbi Loss, would you like to say a final goodbye?
I absolutely would love to say a final no, not a final goodbye. I'll hitraot.
Just for today, right?
I'll say I'll hitraot,
Rabbi.
which means Anat has spoken to our groups in Israel. Anat has been someone I've admired, and I think almost all of the rabbis in our community have had some relationship with her over the past years. And just so you know, as members of Temple Israel, we've also supported these organizations. I mean, we've found members of the congregation who have been significantly committed to the goals and values. Anat, you're doing amazing work. She's a lot of fun. She's really a great lady to meet. I mean, aside from just, I want you to get this sense that you're meeting someone, if you have met her before, who just is a pleasure to be with. So when we're in Israel, we always try to make connection.
Yes.
We have lots of trips coming in, and Anat, thank you for being there. Thank you for doing these things, and kol hakavod, and we just wish you the best on this Shabbat, as we wish you the best on every Shabbat. We'll see you soon.
Amen.
The hitraot.
Thank you.
Thank
The throat until we see each other again. Wendy Kohlenberg, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say hi, Anat. We miss seeing you at biennials. Susan Singer and I are team Anat. We're always trying to grab a picture with you, talk to you, hug you, wrap ourselves in your talit. And we miss being together. And I feel our connection right here on this screen, and our hearts, our support, our prayers are with you tomorrow and always. But we miss
Thanks,
you. We
Wendy.
love when you come to Temple Israel. And as I said, when we see you at biennials. So thank you for sharing all you do with us here at Temple Israel. You're the best.
Thanks. תודה רבה. להתראות.
So, did
Oh,
she?
we lost Anat.
I think she took off.
She took up. She really does fire up your soul, doesn't she? I mean, like, I want to be there tomorrow. I so just want to be there, but we're here. The American Jewish community is here. So again, thank you, Nechama, for helping us put everything together. Thank you to Leah, who is
My
also
pleasure.
here, who helped us put everything together. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. Make sure to watch tomorrow on their Facebook page. And God willing, we'll see you tomorrow night also at Shabbat, either in person or on Facebook Live. Take care, everyone. Lehitraot until we see each other again.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.